Customs and Border Protection, they published an image of a Border Patrol agent recently carrying a undocumented immigrant to safety after the immigrant was purportedly injured while being smuggled into the United States of America.
Wow.
Sector Chief Patrol Agent Brian Hastings tweeted, the immigrant suffered an injury while being smuggled to the United States. The Customs and Border Patrol agent picked her up and had to walk her pretty far to get her some medical care. So here is at least one Border Patrol agent that we are aware of that has a sense of decency and humanity. So kudos to him. It's a good job there.
I hope that you know the rest of his peers don't try and.
By the way, she was a pretty heavy-set woman. She didn't look like a thin little chicken there.
Did that.
You know,
that's
so
amazing,
I mean that's a pretty heavy person. Now, according to statistics from Border Patrol, to give them their props, if you believe their statistics, because these are their own statistics.
Okay.
Through the end of May, they have made over 7,084 similar rescues. Well, we hear of it now because Joe Biden is trying to change the narrative of Customs Border Patrol. You have people from the progressive left like AOC and Representative Tlaib in Michigan who says they want to defund ICE, defund Border Patrol. You know,
that's a lot though, 7,000.
Yeah, and obviously this happened. I can't imagine that this was a photo op. I am sure this incident happened, but they're now trying to publicize it to give the agency different spin on who they are and what they are. Under Trump, think about it. Under Trump,
I just thought they all were evil.
Yeah, under Trump, and we'll talk about that in a second about them all being evil and defunding. Under Trump, you know, you come into JFK Airport, you come into Newark Airport. I haven't come into Miami internationally, Nesquik, so I don't know what it's like to come into I've come in Miami domestic, but not international. So I can only tell you about traveling into New York international. There are these huge posters of Customs and Border Patrol with, you know, a safety vest, bulletproof vest, 10 different guns, you know, a hat, a walkie-talkie, a ferocious dog next to them, you know, and that's how they're portrayed by Donald Trump.
That's y'all welcoming.
That's your welcoming to New York. Well, wow.
Jeez.
You know what? Maybe I should get back on the plane and go back to where I came from.
Me being from the United States, I wouldn't even want to see that.
It scares me.
Yeah.
So I think they're trying to make a change, especially when you get people from the far left, and we've talked about, you know, the difference between reforming and defunding. When you get a situation where it's defund. I don't even think, as an immigration advocate, who, by the way, is no fan of ICE, Customs Border Patrol, Department of Homeland Security. I'm a fan of none of them. And there is no stronger immigration advocate than me and Yo-Yo and Vanessa. But certainly, in my opinion, you can't just defund an entire agency. And what are you replacing it with?
Right.
What are you doing with it?
Right.
You know, you're just going to have, you know, an open border and just let people cross? We're just going to let people walk off a plane and la-di-da, we're here in America? You can't do that. But when politicians say, we talked about this a lot, defund, I assumed what they mean is reform, but they're just using the worst word in the world. Because when people hear defund, they hear there is nobody there anymore.
Right.
We don't have police. We don't have an immigration official. We don't have anybody at the border. What we want is humanity at the border. We want humanity, you know, with the police. It's the same thing. It goes hand in hand.
I have to ask.
Yeah.
Right? Like, let's really think about it. So we hear of hundreds of thousands of cases at the border every day, right? And it's like anything else when we have these conversations about the police or Border Patrol. There's the majority, there's more bad experiences than we do have highlighted ones like this, where it's like, oh, look, like there is someone with some sort of human sense at the border. Fine. When we hear 7,000 though, it sounds like a lot, but is it a lot? Like, I don't know, maybe there really are 7,000 cases of gestures like this in comparison to the hundreds and thousands of negative ones.
But we don't know what they categorize as 7,000. You know, is 7,000 like, excuse me, can you point me to the bathroom? Yes, it's over there, ma'am. Okay, that's a positive. Who knows? You know, I can't imagine 7,000 Customs and Border Patrol agents carrying
Right.
heavy-set
People out
women
there
through
in
the
a year.
desert in a year. So we don't know what they categorize as. There's been
Right.
7,000, of these type of
Just to be a
interactions.
little devil's advocate, just so
Right.
we're not always bashing it, just to kind of try and reel it in and see the light, see a little light, a little hope.
I just couldn't see 7,000 of this exact
But
case
me
in a
either,
year,
me either.
in the fiscal year.
I'll
That's what
I'll
they're
tell
saying.
you
I'm
what
like,
the problem is. Okay, it's a people problem. I thought about this.
Okay.
I've not read anything about this. This is my own opinion, by the way.
Okay.
Okay. I think police locally, whether it's New York City, whether it's Minneapolis, whether it's Los Angeles, Miami, Department of Homeland Security, Immigration Customs Enforcement, we have a people problem there. And the people problem is that sometimes you have the wrong people in the wrong job, and sometimes you have the right people in the right job who are not trained. And I think when it comes to applying to the police academies and applying for a government job to work, there's no test that says, are you the right person for this particular job? And it got me thinking, because I read a book recently about the Israeli army. And what they found in the 1950s is that they would go and interview people, and the generals would figure out, based on their interviews or whoever was interviewing them, you're good to drive a tank. You're good to be an Air Force pilot. You're good to be the mechanic. But they were basing it on their own subjective interviews of people to say, yes, you would be good at this. No, you would be good at this. No, you would be good at that. And what they found out is that people's subjective opinions of who would be good at what, they did this through scientific testing and psychological testing, that even a general's subjective thought of, okay, this person would be great to drive a tank, this person would be good to fly in an airplane,
Right.
are not correct. Because you already have preconceived notions of who people are, what people are, and preconceived notions of what they're saying back to you.
Right.
So you're already
Without knowing what they're actually capable of.
you are already have a bias in any
Right.
interview process. So even when you think that somebody would be good, somebody would be compassionate, you never know until you actually put them out there in the field or do it. And what the Israeli army found out is that even though they've been doing all these tremendous interviews to find the best person to drive the tank, they couldn't find great people to drive their tanks. So what they did is they brought in psychologists. And psychologists then put together tests that had nothing to do with driving a tank or your personality to see what would be your best fit based on these psychological analysis of you as a human being, rather than having a subjective interview by an interviewee. And once they started doing that, that's when the Israeli Air Force became considered the #1 Air Force in the world.
So
Because they
it
were
was
getting,
those tests
it was
that-
about getting the right people in the right seats.
Right.
Now, I'm not saying, we're the Israeli Air Force or anything like that, but the point being is that I think when people apply for the police, when people apply for immigrations and customs enforcement agents, you're getting an entire gamut of people, many of whom probably should not be in those jobs.
Right.
Because of the makeup of that human being. And I think that if you really are serious about saying we want to have a more humane force, but a humane force that is effective. I mean, we still all want our safety, but we all want it on a humane level. We have to start thinking about who are the people that we're allowing to choose who gets to get hired for these jobs.
Right.
Because I think in the hiring process, I'm not saying all of them, there's good people, it's a crapshoot. It's a crapshoot when they're hiring cops, it's a crapshoot when they're hiring ICE officers, it's a crapshoot. You get good, you get bad. And if we're really serious about, you can train somebody till the cows come home. Bad guy's a bad guy, a bad woman's a bad woman, no matter how much training you give them. I've been saying for the last year and a half, train, train, train. But now I was thinking recently,
Like who the people that
can we come up with a better system of selecting who is going
Right.
to be given, who is going? And I think if we come up with a better system, and I'm not saying follow what the Israeli army did with psychological tests, or maybe we should, I have no idea. But we need to get a better system in place of making sure good people are working in these jobs that are supposed to protect us and also be humane and protect our civil liberties. And I think that's where our problem is. We're putting Band-Aids on something, where everybody is reacting when something bad happens.
Right.
Okay? Something bad happens, we now have a reaction. All right, we're going to train better. What we need is proactive. Let's decide moving forward, the right people get put in the right position. Okay, you may apply for the police force. You know what? Maybe you're not right to be in the field. Maybe you don't have the right demeanor to be in the field. Maybe you're better off sitting behind a desk. Maybe you're better off, with a bean counter. I don't know.
I feel like there's so many people that go into these professions simply for, the benefits and the end results and the pensions, and they don't go into it with the proper intention to truly, work the position the way that
you're 100% right. And not only do they get put in a position that they get these benefits because they say, yeah, I'm going to get a government job, I'll get all these benefits. But at the same time, who in the government is deciding that this is a good person to actually put in the field? Just like the Israeli army, the generals were like, oh, this looks like a good person. We interviewed him, put him in a tank. He seems like he'll be a good tank driver, without really finding out if this person has the psychological makeup to drive a tank. Thanks for watching. For more Bradshaw Live, like and subscribe to our YouTube channel.